Welcome to the hordes of the Genestealer Cult, although with the increase in points, less of a horde. In a way this is good, as you do not need to buy as many models through the link in the description to my affiliate links where you can get them far cheaper than going through Games Workshop. And then you get on the table and playing with the Genestealer Cult quicker. So this is my Genestealer Cult video talking about their points. I know what my job is here. I need to make it make sense, and for most of the units I can, but not all of the units. We've also got to talk about the changes to the Munitorum Field Manual, so it's a web page now rather than a PDF, and we have a lack of army construction rules as a PDF downloadable. So it sucks if you don't like or don't have the 40k app, as that is where the army construction rules are for now. If you want to play Warhammer 40,000 11th edition, you have to have the app. Maybe some army construction rules will come out soon enough. For this new edition, Games Workshop's doing something slightly different with points. In 9th edition and earlier, it was points per weapon, points per ability. Everything was granular points. In 10th edition, there was a fixed value. Didn't matter what weapons you had, that was the value of your unit. Even though that definitely wasn't comparable to the value of your unit if you didn't take the best and most supreme weapons and the best abilities. Because despite Games Workshop's plan to have every weapon do something specific, to all be really specialized and do a good job, equivalent to any other kind of weapon, though different, yeah, that didn't happen. So the points are displayed a bit differently in this new field manual. If you've heard me say this already because you watched my earlier Sisters video, it's much the same, so I'll allow you to skip to the next timestamp. But if you didn't watch that, this is how it's going to work in the new app and the non-PDF layout of the Munitorum Field Manual. The way points values are done is you don't just have a points value for the unit. Some weapons have additional points. Sometimes if you take multiple of the same unit, it costs additional points. We're calling this stepped point values. I think it's fine if the third unit you take costs additional points, then it really doesn't matter for 1000 points. But if there's a unit that costs more points the more time you take it, and there is a dedicated detachment focused on that one unit, you're punished for playing the detachment to its strengths. That's not ideal, but generally, oh yeah, here's a thing that gets thrown out a lot because it's a really good datasheet. It doesn't matter what detachment you are playing, it's a good datasheet, people take them regardless. I'm sick of seeing Rogel Dawn tank commanders. I'm glad it costs more for the second and third one. I don't think Games Workshop's gone overboard on points per weapon. They've been rather restrained, perhaps I think too restrained, on the times where they've said, oh, if you're adding these certain weapons, then it costs additional points. There are definitely times when I think, this weapon is clearly better than any other kind of weapon. It changes how the unit works. Why is it not a different points value to the other weapons the unit can take? So they could have done more. We don't need to go back to like 4th edition where frag grenades cost 1 point and crack grenades cost 2 points. I have Conflict 47 if I want to get into that level of detail. The Legends unit's points have been copied and pasted. I can't see any that have changed so far. Whatever the points were in 10th edition, that's probably what the points are going to be in 11th edition. There are no Legends units in the app. They will only start putting Legends units in the app when the Faction Codex comes out. So when the Space Marine Codex comes out at the end of September, they will have their Legends units added to the app. Other factions will not. So there isn't a button on the app to show Legends, but if you're looking at the Field Manual website, use that Show Legends button on the right to see the full roster of units that are available to you. But as a good thing, the characters show that they can attach to Legends units. There's just a little asterisk next to them if it's a Legends unit. Because Legends are not on the app when you're building them, if you're trying to build your army with Legends units, you will mostly use the app, and then you'll have to add on like a paper section where you say, oh yes, and then I add my Legends unit and it costs this many points. And that's how I get to my full whatever the points value you're playing is. Other than not really showing in the app, I have no idea how Legends are different to any other kind of unit, besides not currently being sold by Games Workshop. They are marked as match play in their faction pack. There's no mention of them being excluded in the tournament packs, so I don't know why there's a difference in Legends made necessary. We haven't got the full army construction rules as a PDF. They're on the app. But again, no mention of legends. There is a concern I have that I've not heard from anyone else. All of the faction packs are out. There is no non-aligned faction pack. We don't have any points to add allies for units that are non-aligned, like spindle drones, like the Zote, like fortifications. These do not have points. These do not have rules in 11th edition. This is concerning for me. Is it an oops big oversight on Games Workshop's part? Or are they intentionally deleting your ability to take certain units? If they are, and it's not possible to buy the unit, and there are no rules for the unit, that gives anyone 3D printing a copy of them a stronger legal challenge, if required. Maybe I don't do law stuff. But part of the reason that Games Workshop introduced Legends at the start of 8th edition was to say, hey, we don't make these units anymore, but they're still our units, and we still make points for them, so you can't have them. Other people can't make models of them. So that's a concern. And we haven't had anything on Warhammer Community about Legends. At the start of 10th edition, there were several articles saying these units are fine, you can still keep playing them, don't worry about it. They're only excluded at certain events. We have heard nothing about Legends from Games Workshop. Okay, when you're on the app and you're attaching characters to a unit, it's something you have to do by like pressing the 3 buttons and saying attach to unit, and then it will throw up errors once you attach characters and support characters to a unit if there is more than one enhancement. It seems like you can attach an epic hero to a unit that has an enhancement, or attach them to a unit where there's another character that has an enhancement, and they're attached to the unit. That doesn't throw up an error. We're trying to piece together the rules on enhancements and heroes. Unfortunately, so far we only have the app to tell us this. There's no army construction rules that have been released on Warhammer Community's download page, so we're piecing them together. Support units have to be attached. We were told this on Warhammer Community, but the Games Workshop website is not a reliable source of information for 40k rules. Unfortunately, as different versions of army construction have also been shown off. The army construction rules that we've been shown in Warhammer Community make no mention of dedicated transports, or that you can only have one of each epic hero. The app rules mention these. We've had an article say, something maybe only in doubles, you can use any one detachment, regardless of detachment points, at 1000 point games. That may be coming in a future patch. It may be a future patch only to the doubles event pack. We don't know. Games Workshop communication is terrible. Speaking of, no mention of what size of game the in-between points are, like 1250 points. Is that Incursion or Strike Force? We need real confirmation of that, rather than a Q&A where they said Strike Force and then went on to describe Incursion in specific detail. If there's some FAQ or errata that I have missed, please let me know in the comments. An interesting aspect, don't know if it's intentional, is that points per unit is different for some Space Marine chapters. Like a unit may cost more if taken by generic Space Marines, who have their +1 to wound version of Oath of Moment. All of the Divergent chapters get it slightly cheaper. There are also different costs on the detachments for the number of detachment points depending on which chapter you are. The Black Templars have the Bastion Task Force down at 3 detachment points. It is a very good detachment for them, but it's 2 detachment points for everyone else, including Deathwatch. So it may be an error. The app seems fine. It has the rules for the 26-27 mission deck, so you don't necessarily need to buy the mission deck. It has a tabletop battles aspect, but the tabletop battle thing has some flaws. I tried it out and tried to discard one of my opponent's hypothetical cards because they got Defend Stronghold on the first turn. It then came up with which one of my cards I wanted to discard. Then I tried to discard one of my own cards and it came up with a list of my opponent's cards. That's an error that will make it harder to play on this app. Sometimes the app crashes when you try and open a certain unit or when you try and start the war journal to see a tabletop battle in action. That sort of thing should hopefully be sorted out in time. This is an update to the app, so it may be a bit clunky. I really wish it was a new app. Then anyone who doesn't have Warhammer Plus could make loads of armies, as we could at the start of 10th edition, as we could when the Age of Sigmar app first came out. Instead, without Warhammer Plus, you can only make one army. I was going to recommend making 100 army lists, just have something for every faction. But well, the app is fine and workable. It needs updating, it needs improving, it needs to have legends in. It's something we can see the good aspects of, see the many bad aspects of, and cope. Further updates to the app. The good combat patrol has been removed. The one that started being sold in 9th edition was sold for most of 10th edition. That's gone. There's only the one with the bikes left. So if you want to play the combat patrol game mode, only the Claw of Ascension is available. With this tabletop battles thing where you can fight other people, it's meant to let you see your opponent's army rules if you link your phones. I wonder if you don't have the codex of the army you are playing, can you link the game and then swap phones and see all your army rules and your unit abilities that you otherwise couldn't? If you have someone else near you who has the app, please do this and let me know what the result is. That'd be great. Right, we'll start with the detachments, as we must. There's a couple of tags, and the tags are predictable, as in I predicted them and now they're here. The Pure Strain Brood Swarm has the unique keyword Pure Strain. The Biosanctic broodsurge, which is about the aberrants and the Pure Strains, has the unique keyword Pure Strain. So you can't have the Pure Strain Brood Swarm and the Biosanctic broodsurge in the same army. Similarly, the Xenocult Masses has the unique Hosts tag, and unsurprisingly, the Host of Ascension has the Hosts tag. Although the Host of Ascension is 3 detachment points, and that is the maximum you can play in 40k, so you cannot combine the Host of Ascension and Xenocult Masses anyway. If Games Workshop looks at these a bit longer and thinks, oh wait, yeah, the Host of Ascension really should be 2 detachment points, it keeps the Host tag and isn't compatible with Xenocult Masses. If you're thinking about, what about Apocalypse games? If you use the official Apocalypse rules, which did come out in 10th edition, but were meant to be compatible with 11th edition, the basic way to play it is without any detachments. Otherwise, for each number of thousands of points you are playing, you get 1 detachment. Don't expect an update to that. There'll only be an update to the Apocalypse rules when the next supplement book campaign that has massive battles included will update in some way these Apocalypse rules. Just as the 500 Worlds updated the boarding actions rules. All of the enhancements on our Codex and Final Day detachment are the same points as they were in 10th edition. I'm assuming more because Games Workshop hasn't looked at them, rather than Games Workshop assessed them all and found them all to be exactly the same value as they were in a totally different edition. But we have the points of the enhancements of our 3 new detachments, so there are 6 new enhancements across the 3 detachments, 2 in each. Contraband munitions is 20 points for bonus strength on the Kellamorph or the Reductor Saboteur. It seems a little bit pricey for what it does. Gene-tailored toxins is a very good enhancement to give bonus damage to a Sanctus or a Locus, as it costs the same points as a Locus and you could instead have another Locus. I think it's for the Sanctus, but when we look at the Sanctus, we're going to see that they've gone up in points as well, and an additional 35 points is probably too much of an ask. Even if you can have, with the Sanctus, with the knife, full rerolls to hit, full rerolls to wound against your chosen target, and now you get bonus damage, and you have anti-infantry 3+, and there's a stratagem to give you devastating wounds, so every 3 or higher is causing 3 devastating wounds, it's a very expensive 1 person. You've really got to do that exact combo and have it work, or you're not getting your points back. Still valid. A lot of things are going to be more expensive, so you're going to pick something that's good and also expensive, because expensive is more of the default. In the Pure Strain Brood Swarm, the Talons of the Sire for 15 points is far too expensive. It lets your unit reroll wound rolls of 1. The Patriarch already has Twin Linked, so they won't get any benefit. And as you can only have 1 enhancement on a unit, if it's the choice between Talons of the Sire and Mark of the Star Children, and it is a choice between Talons of the Sire and Mark of the Star Children, go for Mark of the Star Children. On all of your 10 Pure Strain squads, take the Mark of the Star Children. Bonus armor save, bonus toughness, bonus strength. All great. That's the enhancement you want, not Talons of the Sire. And then in the Xenocult Masses, Devious Disguises is 15 points. For a little disguise, 5 points per additional inch of hidden. Maybe. Remember, hidden only works if you don't shoot. As an enhancement, you think, ah yes, I'm making an armor list, so I want this enhancement, the way that you would with Mark of the Star Children. It's not the same. It's more, if you have the 15 points spare, Devious Disguises. Great. Make it harder to hit one of our neophyte units. And then Inspired to Greatness to reroll the damage rolls on your unit, as long as you attach a Magos or Primus to the unit. It's going to affect a couple of your units, like a mining laser, like a seismic cannon, like a grenade launcher. If you have damage dealing neophytes, and you're of course not in the host of Ascension, you're probably in Final Day, and then I think, yeah, that can be a decent enhancement. It's a Purge the Foe disposition after all. You want to have enhancements that help you to kill things. So Xenocult Masses with Final Day in the Purge the Foe disposition. Rerolling damage rolls can help mining lasers to destroy trucks, to damage big things, if you're able to hit and wound the enemy. The unfortunate part is, that's where you have to put a Magos, or a Primus. And if you're comboing with Final Day, probably a Magos, because the unit can get +1 to hit if they're near Tyranids. The Primus still only gives us +1 to hit. You're making the neophytes more expensive. And as we're going to see, neophytes already are more expensive. I wonder if the cheap unit of neophytes is a penalty to the Xenocult Masses. A squad of 10 is up 5 points. And me reading out the name of a unit and then saying it's up a number of points is something you're going to have to get used to in this video. There's only one exception where it's gone down. Everything else is either the same or up in points. Neophyte units are going to get used much the same as they were before. Perhaps a unit of 10 neophytes only went up in cost to match acolytes going up in cost, and metamorphs going up in cost, and genestealers going up in cost for their lowest cost units. But with a squad of 10 neophytes being 3 resurgence points to bring back, bearing in mind you can't really attach a character, we'll get into that later, it's the only odd numbered resurgence point number, so it makes it harder when you're figuring out which units you want to bring back. It's going to be 10 neophytes and 10 neophytes, or you have more of a choice because everything else is like 2 or 4 resurgence points. I like taking units of 10. It's a good blocking unit on the home objective. Sticky that. Get moving. It's part of my Outlander Claw tactics. Maybe now, because it's the same points, I will switch to 5 acolytes with mining tools who will stay on the home objective and try and generate command points. So the acolytes with mining tools and auto pistols, up 5 points, 70 points. Thankfully, a unit of 10 is still 130 points. That didn't go up in cost. You use the unit of 5 for the same thing as before, potentially generating command points. The unit of 10 can smash better. I'm glad they haven't gone up in points, but maybe their support characters have. Acolytes with hand flamers are now far more expensive than the acolytes with auto pistols. 75 points for a unit of 5, or 150 points for a unit of 10. There were not many people taking acolytes with hand flamers as units of 10. When it came to units of 10, I would take metamorphs with hand flamers instead. They were and are going to be the same points. The only real benefit is the full rerolls to wound when you're attacking an enemy on an objective. Objective areas are bigger. That's more models that may be just touching onto an objective that you now get to fully reroll wound rolls against. It's also beneficial for any characters that are in the unit. And so we come to the metamorphs with hand flamers. I'm saying metamorphs with hand flamers because they lost their surge ability to work better with auto pistols. It used to be that if you had all auto pistols in the unit, like none of them had hand flamers, you could always surge 6 inches. I would go for this. I would come from reserve. I'm not going to shoot the enemy. I'm going to charge them. I don't want to make my charge harder by shooting them and killing some enemies. Then I charge them. Then in the following turn, I get shot and I surge into like the retreating unit. Guaranteed 6-inch surge. The new faction pack said, oh yeah, that ability, just remove all of the text. It's D6 inches surge move. It makes no reference to hand flamers or auto pistols. So if you had an auto pistol, it's a hand flamer now. No reason not to. If it looks like an auto pistol, no it doesn't. It's a hand flamer. And you can easily convert them. Cut the cylindrical sprue knob off a bit of a sprue and glue that in place of the ammo clip. The metamorphs are overall worse because this points increase, and they're especially worse in the Xenocreed congregation where you would take 3 units of them, because your 3rd unit costs even more points. 85 points for 5, 160 points for 10. Any of these small units, the kind you would bring back with cult ambush points, they've gone up in point, and far more than their 10-point variant. One sort of improvement, but not really, to the metamorphs is that you can now take 2 characters in your metamorphs. Previously it was limited to the battle line unit, the acolytes and the neophytes. Even though you can take 2 characters in a metamorph unit, it really isn't worth it. The unit dies quickly and can't get much use out of 2 characters. And you're doubling the cost of the unit. 150 points for 10, plus a 75 point character, plus another 75 point character. That's 300 points for 10 toughness 4 people with 1 wound and 5+ save, and a couple of character point bonuses. And you can't have any 2 support characters. The app doesn't like that, so you can't add a Biophagus and a cheap Locus. So good news! The Locus, which was already very cheap at 45 points, is down another 10 points to 35 points. This is mostly surrounding their ability to fight first, and their unit gets to fight first. Fight first is worse. But the character is generally very fighty. Any character that good for 35 points is a steal. A gene steal. But now I'm mainly taking them for the combatability of the model, which is near the Patriarch in terms of fightiness. I'm not going to upgrade them to have +1 damage. I'll have a second Locus somewhere else instead. Now our support characters and such. The Clamavus is the same. Okay, fine, yay, Clamavus is here. It didn't accidentally get destroyed on the way to 11th edition. More's the shame. It's just bad news after bad news. The Kellamorph's cost is the same. They were already overcosted. I suppose it stays the same because it can cause battle shock with its guns, but you have to get very close, and then what if the enemy passes the test? Even with your shoot and move away, you're probably going to lose the unit. Other lone operative characters are better and can infiltrate, but they're not cheaper. The Sanctus is up from 50 points to 65 points. Plus 15 points, and why? Because of one combination? In the Heroes of the Uprising, you have the gene-tailored toxins, and then use a stratagem to get devastating wounds. If that was the case, then increase the cost of the enhancement if it's too strong. And it's already 35 points. That is points increase enough. That is 100 points for a Sanctus. And it's not fair on the Sniper Sanctus, who probably isn't going to be doing that. Yeah, we can up the damage to damage 4. That's important as a breakpoint because a lot of enemy characters are 4 wounds. But it's not run in, ignore Overwatch, and cause a million devastating wounds of the Knife Sanctus. If there ever should have been points values for different options, it should be on the Metamorphs with Hand Flamers compared to Metamorphs with Auto Pistols, but also on the Sanctus with a knife compared to the Sanctus with a sniper rifle. The Reductor Saboteur is up 5 points to 70 points. A little more expensive, in line with the other Genestealer Cult units, the Acolytes, the Neophytes. All of them are up to 70 points. It's a shame the Reductress's points have gone up. She's a little more expensive even though indirect fire is meant to be worse, and her mine only gets stepped on within 8-inch range now, rather than its original 12-inch range. They were already quite expensive at 65 points. I was not rocking 3, although some people in like the Outlander Claw would take 3, because aside from the Jackal Alphas, whose points are the same, there's not many good characters for the Outlander Claw. Having a bomb lady that can jump out of a truck, loves full rerolls to wound from the truck's special ability, that was good. But at 70 points, there are a lot of other units at the same points cost pulling for attention. I think I'll continue to take 1 Reductus. The Benefactus is up another 5 points to 75 points, and I can't see why they would be especially better in this edition compared to last edition. If there had been additional points cost on your second one or your third one, I would think, they're trying to diversify the host of Ascension. All Games Workshop is finally trying to stop people putting 3 Benefactus in the truck and riding around and firing lasers and having any hazardous tests taken by the truck. It's a bad idea, don't do it, please still don't do it, it doesn't work and it's even more expensive in this edition. The Benefactus is a key unit in the host of Ascension. It gives your neophytes lethal hits when they shoot. The host of Ascension is already taking quite a few penalties and it is 3 detachment points, so can't be combined with anything else. I really want to play the host of Ascension. That's going to be my first choice unless I'm combining 2 other detachments, because I like the idea of ignores cover, so I can drop in, be so close that the enemy cannot be hidden, and ignore any -1 ballistic skill. I might even land on top of a building. Then I can get plunging fire. And my heavy weapons, like my mining lasers, will be hitting on a 3+. Ballistic skill 5+, improve ballistic skill by 1 because of plunging fire, and then +1 to hit from heavy. I like that. I can get behind that. That's my plan. But amongst all this chipping away at our points, the Ridge Runner. The one unit that ties the whole army together. The cost of 1 is the same, 95 points. The cost of 2 is down from 170 points to 160 points. But there's an R to this. 10 more points per heavy mining laser. That's the one I want. 105 points for a very fragile vehicle with a decent las cannon. At this point, more and more people may be tempted to switch for the mortar. The mortar is fine, but the mortar is indirect fire. You're only going to hit on a 6, but if you remain stationary and something can see the enemy that you're going to shoot at, which it probably should do, then you hit on a 4+. Then the unit that could see that enemy unit is going to shoot, and they get +1 armor penetration. I know that the spotter is still tempting to get +1 to hit, but I think it's a survey auger all the time, every time now. Whatever you hit with the Ridge Runner, the rest of your army gets ignore cover against it. We have low ballistic skill, so unless you were going to fire hand flamers, ignoring cover is what you want. If you were a massive fan of Achilles Ridge Runners and you took 3 units, your 3rd unit is going to cost even more. I know several lists, especially Outlander Claw, had 2 units of 2 and 1 unit of 1 with the mortar. Well, if you have mining lasers on the first 4, that's 180 points for 2, 180 points for 2, and then 105 points for the 1 with the mortar. Really expensive. I hope you can do enough damage with them. Or more importantly, I think, stick to the crossfire ability. That's the main thing we need. It applies to our shooting, it applies to our combat. You're going to find that none of our detachments are safe from points increases. And to further upset the Outlander Claw, Atalan Jackals are up in points. +1 point per model, and if you were someone who took 3 Atalan Jackal units, another 10-point penalty on your 3rd unit. These were probably going to be units of 5 rather than units of 10, unless you are in the Outlander Claw, but even then, 3 units of 5 work better, partly because of how much easier it is to bring them back from Cult Ambush, because they have to come from a board edge. That's part of their unit rule, and I know Atalan Jackals became very popular. At the end of 10th edition, they had a slight points drop. This undoes that, but suddenly everyone realized, oh wait, I've got this little unit that can just cause a bunch of mortal wounds, that's great. Well, I'd still say, take 1 unit, take 2 units, take 3 units if you're in the Outlander Claw. Unfortunately, it's going to cost you more points now. And then in one that I don't think was warranted under any circumstances, the Goliath Rock Grinder. Same points if you're taking your first one or your second one, but your 3rd one costs an extra 10 points, 130 points rather than 120. This is probably only in Outlander Claw, and there may be one very specific list that Games Workshop doesn't like with the Outlander Claw. I've always found the Rock Grinders a bit too expensive. They're good in the Outlander Claw, but I would only say 1 or 2. Besides that, I'm sticking to Goliath Trucks, which are like 40 points cheaper. 35, 45 points cheaper. Then the next detachment that's going to get more expensive, the Biosanctic broodsurge. The one that most people play, the Muscle Beach, the big aberrant lads and lasses, and also the pure strains. The Abominant is the same points, 85 points for 1, but if you're taking 3 Abominants, as you may be in the Biosanctic broodsurge, the 3rd one costs an additional 10 points. I would say have 1, then buy a shirt that says you love Big Hammer Lady, that's linked in the description under merch. And so in the Biosanctic broodsurge, 2 may be the most you go for. I'm not saying 10 points is like, oh my goodness, paying 10 extra points, this is the worst possible thing. But because you're combining the Biosanctic broodsurge with another detachment, this is a good time to think, okay, well, if I've got 2 aberrant blocks with Abominants, maybe a 3rd aberrant block with a Biophagus, or I put an Abominant and a Biophagus in the same aberrant block. That's something we can do now. Then the rest of the points are not spent on a 3rd Abominant, they're spent on whatever 1 detachment point detachment you included. The Xenocult Masses, for example, the Heroes of the Uprising, to afford better characters. So that's not a big penalty, it's just a little different. The increased cost on Aberrants is unfortunate. 5 used to cost 135 points to encourage you to actually take units of 5. That's been reversed. it's 150 points for 5 and still 300 points for 10. And if you take 3 units, an additional 10-point tax on that third one. The Biosanctic broodsurge isn't all about aberrants. You can attach a Biophagus to any unit the Biophagus can attach to, and they will get the detachment bonus. Metamorphs, good choice. Acolytes with mining tools, also a good choice. This is some encouragement to diversify a little. You don't have to, but it'll cost you slightly more points if you don't. Then we get to the pure strains, who have gone up in points. Only for the unit of 5. Rather than 75 points, it's 80 points for 5. And your third unit has an additional 10 points tax. I was taking 3 units of these. 1 unit of 10, 2 unit of 5. All penalties to playing the way Biosanctic wants you to play. I would take 1 unit of 10 with the Patriarch and then 2 units of 5. They will infiltrate, they will complete my missions. And it was these small units that I'll bring back with Cult Ambush. Under the current Cult Ambush rules, as they've been ported over into 11th edition, units with characters attached cannot come back because you can only return a unit if every model in the unit has the Cult Ambush rule, and none of the characters have Cult Ambush. So the rules as they're currently written, anything with a character attached cannot be returned, so it is these small 5-man units that you're going to be bringing back. It seems however you play any detachment, it's going to cost more points. The Patriarch is up a few more points, but that's warranted. They have a 6-inch aura, every player's fight phase, every enemy unit in range takes a Battle Shock test. Once per game, everything within 12 inches takes a Battle Shock test. That's a 24-inch plus diameter. That's quite a lot of the board. That can upset so much of the enemy, and they will only recover if they can pass their Battle Shock test in their command phase. Otherwise, they're Battle Shocked for a whole nother turn. And you can't use Insane Bravery on a unit that's currently Battle Shocked because that's a stratagem. You can't use stratagems on Battle Shocked units. The Patriarch is good. Despite 5 extra points on it, take a Patriarch. And if you're using the Pure Strain Brood Swarm, especially take a Patriarch, have the Mark of the Star Children, then 10 Pure Strains plus the Patriarch plus the Mark, that's 250 points. That is quite a bit of points, but it should be able to do a lot of things, cause a lot of damage, upset the enemy with Battle Shock tests, be harder to get rid of than it ever should be because of that enhancement. It's expensive, but it should work. And that's how I'm looking at a lot of the Genestealer Cult today. It's expensive, but it should still work. Now, while we are done with all of the Genestealer Cult changes, we're not done with all the Genestealer Cult detachments. In Brood Brothers, some of the units have gotten a bit better, some are worse. The Cadian Shock Troops and the Catachans are now the same cost as the Death Corps of Krieg, and they've gone up by 10 points per 10, so all of their infantry squads are 75 points for 10, or 145 points for 20. Our Neophytes are 70 points for 10, or the same cost, 145 points for 20. You can do alright from a Death Corps of Krieg unit, but for any smaller units, take Acolytes, take some Neophytes instead. Especially for small sticky objective units, Neophytes do the same thing as the Cadians, but are cheaper. The Catachan Heavy Weapon Squad with las cannons and rerolls and Scout, it's the same cost as before, still good. Krieg Combat Engineers that we'd use for a very cheap unit that throws out some more mortal wounds is up 5 points, 60 to 65. Still worth it and still cheaper than a Reductor Saboteur. The Lehman Russ Battle Tank, which gets all of the rerolls to hit when it shoots at an enemy that controls an objective, it's still the same cost, 185 points. There's an extra 10 points if you take 3 of them. I don't think any Brood Brothers player was taking 3 Lehman Russ Battle Tanks. Maybe diversifying a bit instead. Have other kinds of Lehman Russ. And it's not that your third Lehman Russ of any kind costs an extra 10 points, it's 3 of that specific datasheet. A strange thing about the Lehman Russ is that even though it's very obvious that there are different levels of sponsons, heavy flamers are not great, plasma cannons good, multi-melters good, the option of having no sponsons, bad. But there's no additional war gear cost for these sponsons, and I think that's strange. That's one of the most obvious cases where in the Imperial Guard, different weapons should have different points. As on the heavy weapon squads, as on the Rogel Dawn Battle Tank. The Rogel Dawn Battle Tank is the same cost as before, 260 points, but if you're taking more than one, it's 275 points. I much prefer the Leman Russ battle tank for being much cheaper and having those integrated full rerolls to hit. But for the number of guns that the Rogaldorn battle tank has, I can see Brood Brothers still wanting to take at least one. Same for the Shadow Sword. 410 points. It retains its points drop from the end of 10th edition. I can't see anyone taking a second Shadow Sword. Who is taking more than one Shadow Sword? At least diversify your super heavies. Otherwise, it costs 430 points. But the Brood Brothers are fundamentally the same in points. Maybe a little bit up, mostly exactly the same. The weaknesses of the Detachment are the Detachment rule and the stratagems, some of which really, really do not work. Technically work, but don't work. And finally to the final day, where we add Tyranid units. Hyperadapted Raveners are the same cost, but if you have 3 of them, the third one costs 175 points rather than 165 points. They're a very good unit for us, but when we're only having half our army made up of Tyranids, there are other things to add than a third hyperadapted Ravener unit. Lictors and Death Leaper are the same cost. The Neuro Lictor is up by 10 points, partly because of its Battle Shock ability. In your command phase, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches, and it has to take a Battle Shock test. While you're not going to be able to get any enemies while they're moving towards you, they may be able to stay just outside of that, and if they are within that, that's within your lone operative range, so you're probably getting shot. But once combat is joined, once your units are fighting their units in combat, then your Neuro Lictor can sneak a bit closer, maybe it heroically intervenes, and then at the start of your command phase, an enemy takes a Battle Shock test. And if there are any Battle Shocked units nearby, they are -1 to their hit rolls, which does stack with the benefit of cover. And any of your Tyranid units in the final day get +1 to wound against the enemy. A Neuro Lictor's okay. I think we're fine with Lictors. If I have 80 points to spend, I'll spend it on Death Leaper first before any Neuro Lictors because we have the ability to avenge the Star Children. When Death Leaper dies, all our Genestealer Cult units get +1 to hit and wound against whatever killed it. The Red Terror is the same points cost as before. I think it's a bit underwhelming because it seems rather easy to kill. It does have the ability to leave the board and come back later, so it can pop up, attempt to charge, fail the charge, go back into reserve. Captain Flappy Bat, the Winged Tyranid Prime, is the same cost, and at 65 points is cheaper than our Genestealer Cult units for dropping in, completing an action in the enemy backline, and he has a base smaller than 5 32mm bases. Good choice. And then we have some positives. Gargoyles are cheaper. Now Gargoyles will suffer from the same rule change that the Seraphim lose out to. When you deep strike, you cannot move until the charge phase. So you cannot drop the Gargoyles down, shoot, move closer to the enemy, and then the Genestealer Cult units get all the bonuses. Instead, you'll have to put them on the table, fly towards the enemy, but you can do that. You're super fast. You've got 12-inch move, plus advance. Then you fire your Flesh Borers, which are assault. Then you move another 6 inches. You can get where you need to be to deliver that Catalyst Aura. And I think the last one important to mention is the Von Ryan's Leapers. 10 points cheaper for a unit of 3, 20 points cheaper for a unit of 6. But mainly sticking with a unit of 3, they're cheaper because Fight First is not as good. However, for us, there's still another unit that can be in the center of the board. They can heroically intervene for free, or for 1 command point fewer. They are useful for getting rid of things that would tie up our Genestealer Patriarch block. And as the Von Ryans have Fight First, the Lictors have Fight First, in Final Day, add a Locust to several of your units. They have Fight First. That's a lot of Fight First. If the enemy charges more than one of our units, that's a lot of times where they will attack, then we will attack with a unit, then they will attack, then we will attack with a unit. Fights First is good if you have lots of it. If it's a theme for your army, as it can be in the Final Day. And killing the enemy is what we have to do when we're the Final Day. It's the Purge the Foe disposition. A lot of people want a Purge the Foe disposition however they can get it. And it's very effective into us. We have a lot of units that die easily to give the enemy victory points. The Genestealer Cult are not that good at destroying the enemy, or holding objectives. Take and Hold and Purge the Foe cover 5 out of our 9 detachments. We want the Recon disposition, but that is only Outlander Claw. We can get Disruption from the Xenocult Masses, but that seems to have the hardest time scoring versus most of the other dispositions. Dispositions are an issue for the Genestealer Cult, and the problem with our army rule current wording, where you explicitly cannot return a unit through Cult Ambush if there was a character attached because those characters don't have Cult Ambush, That's not good for the Genestealer Cult. Points are up for most factions. Then Games Workshop can bring them down in the coming months and everyone will praise them and be happy. Oh, look at the point drops I got. Well, was it proportional to the points increases you got? Or do you just like seeing green text on the screen? Very few factions have lowered points going from 10th edition to 11th edition. Tau is one of them and they are braced for hate. More hate than normal. Oh, I knew it was Tau that was OP. Even when it was Eldar, I knew it was Tau. The points of not being kind to Genestealer Cult. The points of not being kind to sisters. I know it isn't me specifically, that Games Workshop wants to hurt. Generally, points are up. Our super cheap units are more expensive. Which is odd when there are fewer actions to complete on the table. Only 2 of the missions in the secondary mission deck are actions. I think the points are something we can work with. Our army will be slightly smaller than before. That's fine, that's fewer models to carry to a game. With these stepped points, we're being encouraged to diversify away from just one detachment specialization, which is fine when 5 of our detachments are 2 detachment points, which we'll be combining with a 1 detachment point detachment, at least in 2,000 point games. It can feel a bit annoying after you've just gone super hard in for all aberrants and all pure strains. And that was your army, and now you find it's discouraged for that to be your whole army. What was good depends on when you joined the editions. In 9th edition, there was a rule that said you cannot have more than 1 of each character in your detachment. And now the meta changes once again with a new edition. Genestealer Cult will be fine, it's just going to take a bit of work. And we have several months worth of rapid balance patches where some of our problems will get worked out. And then a few months down the line, when 11th edition is really out, when it's been patched enough to work properly as a game, then the Genestealer Cult can have a great day of 40k.